So if you're like me and most of your YouTube is filled with tech YouTubers, you are about to be inundated in the coming weeks and months with reviews of the Tesla Cybertruck. Yeah, it's finally hitting the market December and January, apparently from what Tesla says. But Consumer Report just put out a report on EV trucks and their range when it comes to towing capacity. So we're going to be talking about that and what that means for range, but also why this may not be a deal breaker for a lot of people. But before we do any of that, definitely hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you're not liking my stuff, let me know in the comment section below. A lot of you don't like it, and that's okay. I'm going to get better. But yeah, I'm becoming one of those guys that tells you to subscribe. So I've always kind of been skeptical about electric vehicles in terms of their ability to cover every single use case scenario for most every single person. And the reason I say that is because I live in Toronto, and here in Canada, the winters get cold. Especially in Toronto, it gets really cold. And I could just foresee that electric vehicle charging will be even more important, and there's not enough chargers here. It's a whole thing. So I've been skeptical about the full-on adoption, but behind all the tech, to me, is the cost. And the cost of an EV is still much higher than an internal combustion engine. Until the cost comes down and infrastructure's there, I really don't see most everyone adopting electric vehicles. But that said, that's my own personal opinion. But besides the point, Consumer Report put out a report about electric vehicle trucks, and specifically how well can an electric pickup truck tow. And this was really, really interesting. It compared the Ford and Rivian, the Ford F-150 Lightning and the Rivian R1T. And what the study did is it pulled a 5-ton box trailer on a 74-mile loop near Connecticut. And what they found, we scroll down, is first they charged each to 100% before testing, and then they sat overnight at a steady 68 degrees in a climate control garage. So really they're trying to control for the effects specifically of towing, keeping everything else the same. And one thing that they found on this was the range took a quite substantial hit. The Lightning adjusted its range prediction to 161 miles and automatically engaged towing drive. Unlike the Lightning, the R1T doesn't allow you to enter the full weight or dimensions and adjusted its range prediction to 150 miles. So automatically, both vehicles note that there is a load on its towing hook and adjusts its miles accordingly. But here's where it gets interesting. After 74 miles, the F-150 displayed 30 miles of range remaining and 27% battery. An extra 52 miles of indicated range was consumed compared to its original prediction. So while it said 151 miles, it actually was less than 100 miles. Similarly, the R1T with 20 miles remaining at 23%, an additional loss of 56 miles compared to its initial prediction. So we're seeing that when these trucks have a load on them, their range goes down dramatically, that the car and the computer tries to compute. But even when the computer computes the predicted range, it's still much less. So if you have to tow, in this case, this 5-ton block, anticipate in perfect weather conditions to go at most 80 to 90 miles. At most, in perfect weather conditions. Okay, but to facilitate this, you also need a robust charging infrastructure. And at minimum for electric pickup trucks, you need level 3 because those batteries are massive. And to charge that, you need really fast charging. And if you don't have a Tesla, it's dicey. It's really dicey out there to get proper charging that's always working. The Straight Pipes, which is this great YouTube channel, I'll leave a link in the description below, went to different EV charging stations when they're reviewing electric vehicles. And here's what they found. This is what they found when they were reviewing the Hyundai Ioniq 5.
The Ranger, we had some problems with this.
Well, the problems were charging.
Yes. This is not the car.
The range is great. It's the charging infrastructure. So, okay. So we met up to switch over the EQS and the Ioniq 5. We went to the same charger that everyone's bragging about at Electrify Canada, which is owned by Electrify America, which is owned by the Volkswagen Group that I just found out a couple days ago, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I told you that. Which also, by the way, that 350 kilowatt charger is the only 350 kilowatt charger in the area.
So we went there, and that was the one that was previously blocked off when COVID was running wild and all the malls were closed. Now there's a huge snowbank, which makes it difficult to get in, and the 351 wasn't working. So we called them, and they gave us free charging on the other ones because payment was unavailable on the other ones. You couldn't pay, and then the one next to it was broken.
Yeah, so 3 of the 4 chargers were broken in some way.
And then to add to that, some people were like, you should try the petrol one. There's a petrol one that's really good in the area. We went to that one, and
both of them were also broken there, so...
Surprise, surprise. But then after, you went to the flow charger that usually gets iced by ice cars.
Yep.
And you started charging.
So for those that don't know, ice means that like an internal combustion engine car will actually sit in the parking spot for an EV and prevent an EV from getting in there and charging.
But you don't have...
No, I didn't. I had to call you.
Because you don't have a flow account, and they don't accept tap by credit card, which I think is criminal, because if you had to have a special app to get, you know, gas at a gas station, that would be straight up bonkers.
Yeah, so I had to call Yuri. Yuri enabled charging for me because I had to preload money onto his account because he had an account.
Yeah.
Enabled it while he wasn't even there, and then I actually plugged in and was able to charge.
And then a dude in an old Ioniq showed up to wait in line to charge next. So because you had to charge to film, this guy had to wait, and we talked to him. He's got like a daily commute. He charges a lot. His route pretty much has zero problems, which is good for him.
Disagree, because he also told us the reason he was at this charger this morning was because the typical charger that he goes to was actually broken.
Yeah. And then his battery has degraded a bunch, and he's got an Ioniq 5 on pre-order. So shout out Josh. Hope you get your Ioniq 5 super fast.
Yeah, we let him check this one out because he's really excited about this car because he wants the extra range because his 2019 Ioniq already is seeing battery degradation.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then when I rolled up in the EQS, I was like, yo, do we play rock, paper, scissors, or what for next? He's like, yo, I've actually been away. I'm like, I know, I'm messing around. I'm buddies with him. And I was just talking about the etiquette and stuff. So that charger has been the same charger since 2017.
Yes.
And there are no more chargers there.
No, and it's still a 50 kilowatt charger.
That was 5 years ago.
Yes.
I literally hate the charging infrastructure in Canada for non-Teslas.
It's the worst.
I don't want to, because Tesla's kind of crazy too, but they got their charging figured out.
Exactly.
That's our charging rant for. So
also, I know everyone's gonna say, leave a comment, yes, 80% or 90% of charging is done at home. However, in that 10 or 20%, this is what you may experience.
Yeah. And you know what?
This is just wild. And you know what? This is the reality. Our charging infrastructure just isn't there. It isn't there at all in Canada, and I don't think it'll be there for a pretty long time. And the reason why I say that is because I did a podcast on this with a member of an EV society here in Canada, and each level 3 plug, the actual plug, all the infrastructure to install that costs $100,000 roughly. So it's very, very capital. There's a lot of costs involved in installing the level 3 chargers. And if it's being installed in malls and in, grocery stores and things like that, in plazas, that makes sense because the cost can be, I guess, shared amongst different tenants in that shopping area. And of course, it makes sense, most people park there. Obviously, most people park there. But it's not like level 3 chargers are ubiquitous. They literally have to be everywhere for people to make the switch and feel comfortable, and not just in plazas and shopping malls, but they have to be at every gas station. At every gas station, there has to be a level 3, multiple level 3 chargers. And, in Toronto and in Canadian conditions in the winter, when it's minus 30, I can totally see if you're on the Trans-Canada Highway and you need to charge, it's very real that those chargers cannot be working, and you will be shit out of luck. You will be in the middle of nowhere and the chargers won't be working. And that is a real, real risk that I don't think has fully been articulated by politicians or EV enthusiasts. I think that there's such a long way to go. But don't take my word for it. Here's an interesting article from a few months ago. Here in Canada, family ditches electric truck on drive from Winnipeg to Chicago after charging troubles. So this person bought a Ford F-150 Lightning, supposed to have a range of 515 kilometers, bought it for $115,000 Canadian. This person spent an additional $16,000 installing chargers at his home and his trucking business. Okay, so I don't think 16 grand is the actual charge for home chargers alone. This person installed it both at his home and his business. So take that for what it's worth. Okay, so spends 115 grand plus another few grand on charging. His first stop was about 350 kilometers south of Winnipeg in Fargo. He paid North Dakota. He paid $56. It took me a while. Sorry. It took me a while there to realize what ND stood for. North Dakota. Okay. All right. I don't know American geography. I should know it. I thought New Delaware. I was all types of messed up on that. Stop was 350 kilometers, paid $56 to charge his vehicle from 10 to 90%. Then this trouble starts. It starts at his next stop in Albertville, Minnesota, where Bala said the only fast charger brought up a faulty connection message in his truck when he plugged in. He headed to another charging station in nearby Elk River, Minnesota, but a charger there wouldn't work either, he said. With only 15 kilometers remaining on his battery and no fast charger within that range, he decided to ditch the Lightning. He got it towed to a Ford dealership, and the family rented a gas-powered 4Runner to finish their trip. Wow. So now this is a pretty extreme case. But you can see what it highlights is that this person needed level 3 charging to make it wherever he was going, because it says here, ChargePoint said the company only had 2 level 2 chargers, which don't charge as fast as level 3. So I'm sure this person wasn't going to wait around hours for his truck to get charged to charge his truck, but instead he just decided to return it. He says, electric vehicles, new technology. I was impressed with it. That's what made me buy the thing. Interestingly enough, this is funny. Megan Joachim with Ford of Canada said in an email, the truck's range of 515 kilometers is estimated by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Estimated. It very well may be 515 or it could be 15. We just estimate it. We don't. If you drive out there and you get 20 kilometers, that's on you. We're not responsible. What a great response. So that really is the big issue with charging. But it's not all bad news for electric vehicle truck owners or prospective electric vehicle truck owners. And I'll get to that in a minute. But before I do, just to recap where we've been. If you plan to tow with your EV truck, expect approximately a 50% reduction in mileage and perhaps even more based on the climate. So if you're towing a large load here in Canada and it's the middle of winter, do not expect to go anywhere close to the estimated range that your truck company has provided your EV. Expect, in my conservative estimate, 30% of the range. I would say 30% of the range if you're towing a full load. And just so we're all clear about EVs in winter, according to AAA, EVs often lose 12% of their range in cold weather, but the loss leaps to 41% with the heater on full blast. So just know that if you plan on using your EV primarily in winter, there's going to be some losses there. Okay, so what is the silver lining to all of this? What are the counter arguments to everything that I've just said when it comes to EVs? Well, there's not many counter arguments when it comes to range. Range is what it is. The weather is what it is. traveling uphill is what it is. These all tax an energy system, and that includes gas-powered vehicles too, right? Like burning more energy in the winter. It's just the reality of physics, right? Like you just need to burn more energy. Okay, but there was a study done, and I'll get this up right here. Study claims that most pickup truck owners don't actually use them for truck stuff. Who would have figured? Now, again, this is just a study that I found. I'm sure there are more studies that will come out as time goes on. But here is what's really interesting. If I can make this bigger. How often do pickup truck owners use their vehicles for various tasks? Shopping and errands, 87% frequently. Pleasure driving, 70% frequently. Commuting, 52% frequently. Personal hauling, 28%. Towing, only 7% indicated they frequently use their truck for towing, 29% occasionally, and 63% said rarely or never. So if you are on the wait list for a Cybertruck, or you have an F-150 Lightning, or you have the Rivian R1T, or you're trying to save up for the Silverado EV, chances are you're not towing. And if you're towing, you probably have an F-150 gas-powered car for that, or an F-350 if you're serious in towing, or you do it all the time. So all of what I've said when it comes to towing capacity for EVs is a moot point when only 7% of pickup truck owners use their truck to tow. So sometimes when we read these reports from Consumer Report, we have to sometimes take them and contextualize them with what consumers actually want. And I think these companies know that. They know that these vehicles cannot tow at all for any type of distance compared to their gas-powered rivals. They're not trying to compete with gas-powered cars on towing capacity and length of time in all conditions because they just can't. The Cybertruck can only tow, and I say only, 11,000 pounds. The Ford F-150 can tow more. So the Cybertruck can't out-tow its competitors, and it certainly can't do so in all weather conditions and over vast distances. So they divert your attention away from that towards the tech, or in the Cybertruck's case, the looks. The looks of the Cybertruck is like a kid drew it. And one thing that I think is interesting about the Cybertruck, if I can get that up, is just how this thing will maneuver in large cities. So if we go back to the idea that these things are primarily used, just look at this thing. It looks like a kid drew it. I mean, it really does. Now, I must say, I am wowed by the cool factor. Don't get me wrong. But if we go back to that study that showed that the majority of truck owners use it for shopping and errands, how is this thing going to just deal with city streets or in the really tight streets in New York City or in other parts of the country with big municipalities? Here in Toronto, our streets are slammed as they are in most cities with traffic. But not only that, the amount of edges this thing has. I mean, when you really look at it, like the edges on this thing are pretty wild. And I just think to myself, what about cyclists? They might get doored by this thing. I mean, this could be a real hazard to public safety just looking at it. And I'm not trying to like crap all over EVs and Cybertrucks, but my point here is that there's a lot more to consider than just the coolness factor. There's a practicality factor as well. So how will this maneuver in city centers? How will it be safe for pedestrians and cyclists and other vehicles around it? The Cybertruck weighs 7,000 pounds, roughly. The Hummer EV weighs 9,000 pounds. To put this all into perspective, one of the most popular cars in Toronto and in most cities in North America is the Honda Civic, the Hyundai Elantra, the Toyota Corolla, small compact sedan, not sedans, compact cars, they weigh 2,000, 3,000 pounds. Like, they weigh what the Hummer EV's battery weighs. Like, so the Hummer EV is like this monster truck on our roads, and everything else is just like the smushed cars at the bottom of a monster truck. So, anyways, this I'm hoping can spark some conversation around what are we using EVs for and what we want from them. So if you're looking to buy an electric vehicle pickup truck, just know that it's probably not a good idea to tow with it. It's a better idea to use it to go shopping, as clearly most people do, and it'll serve you well. So just remember that. I hope this brings some light to the other side of EV pickup trucks. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. If this, in fact, is something that you found interesting, fascinating, etc. I'm here at Open Minds trying to share with you the most important, pressing ideas from different perspectives, and I hope this did that today. So thanks again for watching, and I will definitely catch you in the next one.